Culture and identity share certain commonalities with language, or at least how language represents the experiences of different people and communities. Through the medium of poetry, composers are able to use language to reflect on their individual and collective experiences and how those experiences shape their identities and that of those around them. In Circular Breathing by Jaya Savage, the poet creates a sense of shared culture by comparing brands from his own culture, Australian, and the Italian culture where he is temporarily living. Armani, Ray-Ban, Dolce & Gabbana all sink at once into equivalence. Savage employs this metaphor to create a sense of conjoining cultures that were both brought together by the sound of a didgeridoo. Similarly, in Translucent Jade by Maureen Ten, language is used to represent the identity of the poet as well as culture. The language technique repetition is used to represent the recurring motif of the young child in the poem. The repetition of gift could be seen as the poet's way of attaching her identity to the collective identity of her family. At first, she is connected with her grandfather through his gift, and that the gift given to her by her mother replaced the grandfather's gift. The gift is revealed to the audience to be the Chinese name given to the poet Ten Chin Yu at the end of the poem, creating a sense of ambiguity. Therefore, the gift given by her mother is the more westernized name Maureen Ten. In Chinese culture, to reject a name is to reject heritage, and the fact that she says, "I tried it on," shows that she does not want to reject her heritage, because to do that, she would be rejecting her identity. As a poet, utilizing language to its full potential is tough, because you'd have to address all cultures, all individuals, and their identities, both collective and personal. Assuming that an individual's collective identity refers to how they react to and reflect on the experiences of others, and that their personal identity is how they reflect and react to their own experiences, poets Jaya Savage and Maureen Ten have similar approaches in their poems to address personal and collective identities. In Savage's poem, Circular Breathing, he refers to himself as a man with dreadlocks, but he's in a crowd, surrounded by people, all with different experiences. For example, everyone is listening, kids sit by the fountain swapping smokes for laughs, tourists lick gelati as they pass illicit markets. Nuns halt, then the carabinieri. This shows that the poet at the time was focusing on the experiences of others around him rather than his own. This, in a sense, shows Savage's compassion for the individual identities around him as one collective. You could also consider this to be culture. In Translucent Jade, the poet Maureen Ten explores her personal identity through the language technique of repetition of the gifts given to her by family members. The gift represents Ten's name. At the start of the poem, the gift is supposed to shape the composer's identity, but her personality is replaced by the gift that her mother gave her. I used it for a while until another gift, my mother's, flashed into view. In this poem, her personal identity is given to her and then replaced by a more westernized version of herself by her mother. This shapes Maureen Ten's personality, and it could be easy to imagine that it would affect her negatively to be continuously changing between names, and in many ways, through certain platforms such as poetry, composers are able to reflect on their individual and collective identities, exploring how their experiences are shaped by their various cultural perspectives. The two mentioned texts share multiple similarities in the messages they attempt to deliver to the audience via language techniques. In Circular Breathing, Jaya Savage employs a paradox to challenge certain cultural beliefs of others. The paradox is that he is bringing part of the Aboriginal culture into the town square of where the Catholic Church was born. This is paradoxical because it was the Catholic Church that sent people to Australia to colonise and ended up killing thousands of Aboriginal people. This is important because although this happened, it is not the driving factor behind travelling to Italy, and that in Italy, Savage saw all of the audience listening to the didgeridoo enjoying themselves, just as they would if they came from any other country or culture. Like I mentioned before, in the Chinese culture, to reject a name is to reject heritage. Doing this cuts ties with a massive and widespread culture, effectively cutting ties with the world. In order to avoid this, Maureen Ten, or Ten Chin Yu, revisits her old gift and uses it to reconnect with her grandfather and their culture, practically through the use of language in the form of her name.